Hello, welcome. I hope everyone can hear me. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. My name is Nuela. I'm with Independence Public Media Foundation, and I'm joined with John Kaufman, co-founder of Media and Neighborhood Group, also known as MING. He'll pop up in a minute. We're so excited to partner with Ming on this Solidarity in Action film showcase of 6 short films produced by Ming that is about different ways that individuals, organizations, and local communities have been navigating the pandemic and various forms of systemic injustice. This work of storytelling builds on IPMF's history as a small TV station known as WYBE, which showcased diverse voices and sought to strengthen and connect communities through media. Today, IPMF seeks to do this work through grant making and through programs that strengthen networks of people who are creating and sharing information, ideas, and stories for change and justice. Tonight's event embodies all of this. We are so grateful to Ming for capturing the richness of our communities through this beautiful layered visual archive. These films will be screening this summer at Scribes Street Movies all over the city. And also this event will be airing on PhillyCam later this year, so stay tuned for that. In addition to Ming, I just want to give thanks to the community members and organizations who contributed their voices and their time to these films. I want to give thanks to our moderator, award-winning lyricist and author, educator, Lyrespect. And I also want to give thanks to PWP Video, who has handled the tech side of this event, and it's just been a pleasure working with all of you. So now I'm going to pass it over to my partner here, John Kaufman from Ming, to share a few words before the screening. Enjoy, everyone.
Good evening. Thank you, Nuela. Thank you for the intro. My name is John Kaufman. I'm the co-founder of MING Media, along with Elle Sawyer. And I just wanted to say thank you again to Molly, to Nuela, to Annie, and everybody at IPMF for making this happen and for believing in this storytelling process. Our entire culture and what we do at MING Media was born out of the need for this type of media, out of the need for relevant, real storytelling that is from the actual people that have lived through real experiences. So, like I mentioned, my partner, Elle Sawyer, who's the co-founder of Ming, he was in prison when he was a young man. And during that time, there was no media that was relevant for his experience and what he was preparing to come home to after incarceration. He learned filmmaking, got exposed to it during that process of incarceration, and came home. And I'm sure, as many of you know, we've done a lot of amazing work since. But that entire culture and that ethos of using stories and film to create relevant media that is, not really from these large corporations, that is from the actual community, from people that have from lived experiences. That's the entire culture and ethos of what we do at Ming. I wanted to give a special thank you to the filmmakers that you see here tonight. They'll be featured after the screening. Make sure you stay tuned for the panel with Lyrespect. She's moderating. And I wanted to really talk about storytelling in general. Like what we do is reframing the narrative, right? This past year, we've all experienced some form of pain and loss and hardships. And this process of creation of storytelling, especially in this process where we work together, film is a naturally collaborative process, especially working in a community setting such as this. And, film, it's cathartic, right? Like arts in general are an amazing way to process hardship, right? To process pain and trauma, right? And we're doing that together through these films. And the amazing filmmakers you're going to hear from tonight, each of them is bringing their own personal experiences as well as their filmmaking background themselves. And I think during these times, we really need each other more than ever, right? We need to collaborate more. We need to hear from each other's voices. We need to share in these kinds of formats. On behalf of myself and everybody at Ming, I wanted to invite you to enjoy these films. We hope you to find some hope and beauty and power in these films, and love. And without further ado, we're looking forward to sharing these films with you. And please stay tuned afterwards for the panel featuring the filmmakers, the amazing subjects that shared their stories with us, moderated by Lyrespect. So thank you, and see you soon.
Yeah, I'm down here where the dollar store at. In between market, Arch and Market. My part is maintaining 52nd Street. I live in the community, and I can even recall to take you back. There was a time I used to tear 52nd Street up, many years ago. But now I'm part of, trying to make my community better. When me and my crew get out there, we make a difference. Now, every Monday is tore down from the floor down because we don't work on the weekends. There's nothing we can do about that. It's my job, so I do what I do. Oh, they're here every day. Every day, especially down here on Market Street, which is fine, especially when they interact with the community. They do what they do and I do what I do. For the most part, I gotta keep it moving. You're innocent until proven guilty. It seems like we're guilty just from getting a call when they stop us. Stop and frisk. You automatically just assume that I done something. And I work up there and I've been in that situation. The day of the protest, I think somebody called me and said, "Did you see the news? They're tearing 52nd Street up."
It's not easy to stand up and speak your truth to power. It's not easy to rehash painful experiences like the ones that protesters on I-676 and on West 52nd Street faced earlier this year. And I want to be perfectly clear, this isn't just pain, this is trauma we're talking about. The very people charged with serving us and protecting us from harm participated in perpetuating the cycle of violence and oppression that these protests targeted in the first place.
To our right, a family was celebrating a birthday of a child on their stoop. We could see that on the other side of 52nd and Chestnut, volleys of tear gas, which I captured on my Facebook Live, started falling in our midst. There was no warning, not one warning, no announcement, and no provocation. We so normalized over-policing in the Black community that we now take for granted tanks driving on our streets, tear gas in our front yards, and riot gear-clad police officers cussing at our children.
When I came out the house that Monday morning, it was tore up from the floor.
The communities that feel the safest don't have the most police in them. They have the most resources. There was a demand for a decrease of $120 million from police in Philly and to invest that $120 million into communities. A lot of city council members were saying, we can't defund the police because the people who are impacted by gun violence aren't gonna want that because they actually need the police to keep them safe. And so we decided that we wanted to put out a community survey that asked Philadelphians, okay, what are the things that we actually want the city to put its money towards so that we can have real safety in our communities? What would you say is the reason why actually in the moment where we feel the least safe is the most important to spend less on policing and more on reinvestment in our communities?
You think about drug addiction. So when someone's in a mental health crisis or in a drug crisis, who would be better suited to serve a person going through a crisis? It would be a mental health professional, it would be a counselor, not necessarily the police.
The knee-jerk reaction is, oh, well, we need police for safety. That's because that's all we've ever gotten. And so communities that have, been starved for all of these other resources have only gotten police in response. Investment in the right things is actually what's going to save us, is actually the things that going to help us create the vision that we want to see for our communities in the future that we all deserve.
We need to find a place where this money can go at and help the community. A mother who has to work, where her kids can go at, after school, be there, chill, and the parents can go pick them up. We're talking about safe haven. See the difference? See the difference? You can look down.
The people want to be heard, and to pass a budget with no meaningful cuts to police department at this time, when thousands of Philadelphians are flooding the streets, occupying city buildings, calling, emailing, organizing, and rising up in grief and in rage would be a mistake. I cannot in good faith vote on a budget that shows disregard for the voices of our constituents.
Now with the breaking details, and there were protests overnight as well.
Indeed, John, and the man shot and killed by police has now been identified as Walter Wallace by the mayor of Philadelphia. This all started when police responded to a call report.
Pink Floyd, another brick in the wall. I'm Joanna, and this is a rock and roll homeschool episode of the Sunday Dinner Mixtape right here on Germantown Community Radio, 92.9 FM on your radio dial, and streaming online everywhere, GTownRadio.com. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah. You listen to Praise Hallelujah on GTown Radio, GTownRadio.com. Beautiful, 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 beautiful morning. Beautiful morning. I'm loving it, loving it, loving it. I was like a zombie till I was awake. I grew up in Germantown. G-Town? G-Town! The G. Feeling like a rude boy. Always acting crazy, but my heart felt like a true toy. God wants the best for Germantown. When you lift up your voice to pray, you know what I mean? If any gentrification is happening in your area, just pray, Father God, for great things to be done. And sometimes we still have to get out there and show up and do what we have to do and stand up and say what we have to say, because remember, we have dominion over there. Therefore, we are in a place to say, you will not take my property in Jesus' name.
And you are listening to Germantown Community Radio at 92.9 FM WGGT LP Philadelphia and online at gtownradio.com. And welcome to the Germantown Info Hub Hour. Take it away, Maleka.
Thanks, Tom. Greetings. Our guests today are the Germantown residents behind the voter information cart. How did you decide to start bringing that voting information directly to neighbors? And yes, definitely tell us about that cart.
Because of the times that we're living in, getting information to people has been very challenging and limited because of the pandemic and people quarantine. Places where you would get the information are basically closed and inaccessible. So time was ticking down and people needed to know.
Clarice and Barbara, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
You just saved me a lot of. Now I got this bit, go back and sell it to my wife. So thank you. All right.
You are listening to 92.9 FM, WRLG-LP, Philadelphia, Germantown Community Radio, broadcasting from Wednesday noon.
We have our guest. Hey, Jane, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. How you doing?
Doing well. Let me just get that music out from the background. I wanted to talk to you about a really exciting project you're doing relating to the Germantown Community Fridge.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. It's funny. It's right across the street from the GTown Radio, so
Exactly.
you should have a good view on it.
So tell us a little bit about what the Community Fridge is.
Sure. So it's exactly that. It's a fridge for the community, and it's run by the community, by volunteers. It will be open 24/7. And then the food inside is just free for whoever feels like they need to take it. And it's also stocked by community members and local organizations who are making food donations.
So the question then is, what motivated you to start this?
With COVID going on, there have been so many families that have been hit hard, and it's really been amazing to see the different ways people have been trying to help, especially in terms of food. I'm not going to take credit for the community fridge. I heard about it first popping up in New York, but there are also a couple other ones in Philly, so we kind of just put our heads together. And, I live in Germantown, so I was like, this would be a really good place to start one. And I know the community members here would benefit, and also the community members here would help me to get it started, too.
Well, that's great. It is a testament, as we're seeing during this time, of just how strong our community is. The question, I guess, would come up for someone who's...
Got a question for you.
If I give my love to you.
And we're here with Nomad, a local artist here in Germantown. Care to explain your art form first?
It was really kind of a way for me to just communicate with the people that I wanted to communicate with. I guess I kind of speak for the people who aren't really heard, or I guess I'm trying to get my message through in the best way that I possibly can, because just to see how everything is just changing up. I just want Germantown, I don't want it to ever change. Continue to just be as eclectic as blacks, and maybe that's a hope and a wish.
I think you kind of summed it up. Germantown, keep being you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Tom, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you for having me on here.
Oh, sure.
I appreciate it.
Being born and raised here, and I went to a Catholic school here in my neighborhood, again, in a predominantly Italian neighborhood. So what I was taught from them was that Rizzo was a hero. And it wasn't until I was older that I realized the pain and violence that he inflicted on Black and brown communities. Knowing that there was a lot of tension and racial tension that was happening that, has what I tell people, I lived in my community my entire life. So, I know how people have reacted to Rizzo are things that are not new to me, because I was in this neighborhood growing up in the 80s. And there's this sense that all this change has happened. And so some things have changed and some things have remained the same. When Rizzo's statue was being removed, I knew that the mural was going to follow shortly after. And so while I was looking at the wall, I was thinking several things, and one thing was this concept of cleanse. Cleanse is a series of projections that is meant to utilize visual images, video, text, to really create and form a space of healing. Then the next thought that came to my mind, especially with the work that we were doing on 9th and Montrose, that that the images that would be reflected in cleanse would be folks that are also representations of the market, right? So not necessarily focusing on Rizzo, but let us focus on the beauty and the joy and the love and triumph that we have living and breathing in our market at this moment, right?
If you have the time, the money, and the official power to build a monument to someone who's important to you or your community, you do it because you've had the access. But if you don't have the time, the money, or that official power, you claim your own power. You gather next to a monument that exists, or you build your own monument. And that's the way you make your presence felt.
We're out here this rain reminding you to vote Tuesday, November the 3rd. Make sure you go vote. As I came up to say, they're trying to tell us that our vote doesn't matter. But it must matter because they're trying to stop us from voting.
You know, what we're seeing with the big spotlight on monuments, it's about the symbols we've inherited, but it is as much about systems of power, both in terms of empowerment and disempowerment. It's about justice, both in terms of the possibilities as well as the pitfalls.
All Power to All People is a Afro-Pic sculpture that was installed to North Philadelphia, 2 blocks away from where my great-grandparents used to live, on the same property of the church where my grandmother has been going for almost 80 years. I do see this work being, of course, in the legacy of the beautiful murals that are all over Philadelphia, but also impromptu sculptures and events that kind of have popped up that make the city unique.
When we would visit family, like in North Philly, or would drive through Philadelphia, my first exposure to murals were the memorials to folks that were victims of violence. How I see myself in the work that I do is really building from that, right? It's not reinventing it. It's not saying, oh, well, let's make it fancier. It's actually like valuing not just what is there already, but the people who have created that space. In the midst of pain, in the midst of poverty, in the midst of so many obstacles, there's resilience and there's power and there's love and there's joy and there's triumph and there's hope.
My name is Ajaya Stedman. I am 20 years old and I am from North Philadelphia, used to be more 28th Street. And I just graduated from high school in November.
Good morning, guys. It's 6:50 in the morning. I'm getting ready for work. About to brush my teeth. And yeah, today's the COVID testing, my first one. I'm a little nervous.
And a very important one that they're dealing with the United States. The new data coming out that shows African Americans and people of color are dying in the pandemic, and it's just a disproportionate amount.
You know, health disparities in African Americans has been around prior to me graduating from medical school, and that was over 2 decades ago. So for me, in April of 2020, to hear the same thing I've been hearing for over 20 years, I said, I'm not doing it anymore. And that's why the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium was formed.
When the pandemic hit, it hit us all, literally. Stores are closed, markets are closed, everyone's very, very scared about how to move forward, and we were as well. And so we realized that, hey, we need to do something about this.
If you have any questions, please put me to the side. Right now, we will start distributing at 4 p.m. on the dot. So we got 560 boxes of food. So if you know somebody who needs one, come on down. And everybody will get turkeys, first come, first serve. But everyone will get a box of food, okay?
When it first started, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't take it serious. But once it really started spreading and getting worse and stuff, and then people closer to me caught it, it was like, okay, this is serious.
Yesterday was a huge success. We ended up testing, 487 people. That's an excellent testament to the work that we're doing, and we got to keep it up, okay? Today we're at Deliverance. Last time we were here, we had a huge crowd, and today, expect the same.
African Americans are dying and being diagnosed with coronavirus, specifically 2 times and sometimes 3 times greater than every other group in the United States. But no one talks about what the healthcare responsibility is improving health disparities in African Americans.
So we're going to need everybody to take 2 steps back if you didn't come with the person you're in front of. We want to keep everybody safe out here.
This pandemic has exposed the have and the have-nots. Philadelphia is a city of poverty. When it started to hit the Black community and the brown community, it started to hit the Black and brown community.
I am, but I'm off on Fridays.
You want a new job?
We'll talk. Let's talk, because they just told me I'm cut. They just told me yesterday. Seriously.
When people talk about health equals wealth, that is absolutely important. People are getting laid off. People are getting furloughed, which means you don't make money. You can't pay your rent. You can't pay your mortgage. You can't buy food. That financial impact is really burdening our communities.
I have been working throughout this whole time.
Well, I'm back. Just got off of work. I'm so tired. I just want to pass out and go to sleep, but I'm gonna go get this COVID test done. Can you guys see that? Line is all the way up there.
To date, we have tested about 15,000 people. Of late, we've been testing 400, 500 people per session.
What number you said you was at again?
118.
118. I gotta wait out here for an hour or so. An hour to an hour and 15 minutes. They're calling people up by groups though, so that's the good thing.
I'm grateful we can offer it, but I'm not letting the hospitals off the hook. As a physician, a hospital, a healthcare entity, it is your job to help those who need help, to change those health disparities.
Okay guys, that wasn't as bad as I expected, but as you can see, my eye is watering.
We are all in this together, and we have to push forward.
We need each other. Unity right now is the biggest thing that we need.
It's not enough to say, well, we should have planned better. We should have more testing kits. You need to do something. And I'm at a point in my career now that I can be part of changing that story.
The mic is powerful, so if you're holding it like this, it's gonna get distorted.
This is so cool, man. Shit, bro. Keep talking to it. I'm gonna fix up a few things.
Okay, sure. What do I talk about?
Just anything.
Okay. Oh no, my day was just garbage. Any other day. Same thing. Pain.
Felt Okay, school.
School?
Man, how was you guys' day? Hello, my name is Eric.
¿Qué tal? Soy Mari.
Hey, my name is Edgar.
Hola, mi nombre es Morales.
Hi, my name is Brian.
My name is Ashley and we are Cafecito con Fuerza. School is hard. This is my first year as a high schooler and this is not what I expected at all. It's virtual, 7 hours in front of a screen at my house. Honestly, it's a lot.
Okay, what was the biggest difference between Sparta and Athens?
One was about education, and the other was like more about the military.
Here, throw this in the jar. Agárrala bien. Agárrala bien. Look, you're dropping the banana.
Wait, it's not working. Oh, you want to help me?
Yes, I know what to do. Log in with Google, then log in with Clever. You're welcome.
Choose an activity to begin.
Mommy, put the...
I hope you go back to school soon, Sammy.
Huh?
This is killing us. I have to go to work, and sometimes we have to call them and make sure we have the camera, so we have to watch them that they really actually on the table doing something. And I'm like, Samantha, are you in class? And she's like, yes, Mom, I'm in class. Okay, let me know if you need anything.
For the first 2 weeks of school, my eyes would kill me after school. I couldn't handle for another 2 hours of doing homework or whatever. And I just needed like a nap afterward. And then eventually I just lost motivation. Like I got late and I was like, yeah, I'm just not gonna do the work.
They need to interact with the other kids. They see them on the computer and stuff, but they need to interact with their friends. That's how humans get socialized.
You don't have that bond that you do like going into high school like the first year, like you learn, no.
Everybody's trying, even the teachers are trying, moms are trying, but the kids, it's just like I feel they get in the worst part.
Virtually, it just sucks. Sucks, man. Probably at this point it's not even an opinion anymore, it's just a fact.
Dos puntos. Conversación Latinx desde Filadelfia, Costa Este.
Bueno, Erika, hablemos un poco de la lucha que viene ahora.
Nuestra comunidad no tiene acceso a los programas de alivio local y federal por causa de ser indocumentados. Tenemos un centro de apoyo que es hoy de las 10 a la 1, si están escuchando y están en necesidad de pañales y fórmula, lo damos gratis afuera de la oficina de Juntos cada viernes. Todavía estamos creando comunidad y apoyando a nuestra gente. La manera en que lo hacemos es diferente ahorita, pero es porque eso es lo que la gente necesita ahorita, es una necesidad, ¿verdad?
Okay. What equals viral TikTok? Do you guys want to do an easy one?
Ideas.
Some of them definitely have to be serious, obviously.
Yeah.
But I also want to have fun with this. It would be like one of us on a Zoom call for school, in our rooms or something, and then down below it's just our mom blasting her music, limpiando, que sea con el pelo de la escoba.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sweet.
Y arriba yo, mi papá y la chona.
¿Qué hacer si me encuentro a la migra en la calle? Solo di su nombre, no des un nombre falso.
Tiene el derecho de permanecer en silencio. Lo único que tiene que decir es su nombre. Recuerde, en boca cerrada no entran moscas.
thing about drums, people first think of them as loud. And I think when an instrument is first thought of as loud, it's not also permitted to be feminine and to have variations and beautiful tonal qualities. Drumming to me is singing. And it wasn't until my body changed to the point that I could no longer be a professor that I had to think, what is the one thing I've never messed up? I have been coming to this park for a while. When I first started my adventures in wellness and going into hikes and really challenging my mind and my body to be in spaces that, yes, could be dangerous for a body like mine, but also could be extraordinarily beneficial for a mind like mine. I had developed a drug habit. I was also very popular at the time. So to get out of that, I had to remove myself from my entire ecology. It had to change. And so this is the green noise. You know, even hearing traffic being distant is a type of noise complemented with these bird sounds. Drum Like a Lady is a nonprofit that was born out of just getting people together to experience music through improvisation that's led by women and governed by percussion. Because I'm not actively playing music as much, this music is definitely my soundscape. My music is the difference between dripping water and streaming water and rushing water and falling water. I like music with vast dynamic range because I think that's what it feels like to be bipolar. It's just to have a vast dynamic range. Sometimes it's very vast in one day. Sometimes the vastness lasts 1 year on the low side. But it's a range, it's a wide range.
So the medical model of disability is there is something wrong with you. You are missing this, or this is not right about your body. It literally creates a them situation. The social model of disability is people without disabilities for generations and millennia have been creating a world that is not accessible. So when we create buildings with steps, we are creating disability. It's not the person that can't get up the steps. It's the steps that we have created which does not allow a person to enter the building.
You know why a lot of people are struggling right now with Corona? It's because things that they were able to do have become disabled. You used to be able to go to the store whenever you want. Now you're disabled in doing that. You used to be able to travel, hop on planes, go wherever you wanted to go. Now that is no longer something you're able to do in the same way. And it's frustrating to people. But I get it, because it's a frustrating thing. It's a different kind of life. My life was never comfortable. So this is just other people getting used to something I've been dealing with all my life. Welcome. Welcome. Welcome to being uncomfortable. It's also a good place for growth.
Welcome back to our Solidarity and Action video series. We are now entering our panel portion of the program. I know that when I first experienced all of these films, I was deeply moved and very much encouraged about the direction that public media, that independent media, that movement-based media is going. So just one more round of applause in your hearts and your minds and your homes for all of our brave filmmakers and our subjects. I know we can't physically be in person, but send that good energy and that vibration out because it takes courage to create media like this. As a recap, we first saw a film from the Movement Alliance Project. And I'll be reading the very brief descriptions to give us a little bit of context so we know what we're speaking about with our panelists. When protests against police brutality erupt in West Philadelphia, residents, city officials, and activists find themselves at the epicenter of the conversation around public safety. That's produced by Aidan Un, one of our panelists today, and it features Councilwoman Kendra Brooks, among others. Our next film was coming from GTown Radio. Public radio is more than just the music. This community station is a platform to engage local issues like gentrification, voters' rights, and food scarcity. That also was produced by Aidan Un and featuring the artist Nomad, who is also here with us today to speak about his art. Our next video was from Monument Lab. While monuments of white supremacy are torn down across the nation, the Frank Rizzo statue and mural is dismantled here at home. This piece shows how Philadelphians use monuments to advocate for justice, celebrate heritage, and honor loved ones. Produced by Tashay Williams, also on the panel today, featuring Michelle Angela Ortiz and Hank Willis Thomas, among others. Our next film was from Philly Audio Diaries, and it featured the Black Doctors COVID Consortium. Journalistic stories about young people are almost never told by young people themselves. Lajea, who is here with us tonight on the panel as well, is a student who, like so many of us, got tested for COVID-19 this past summer. Dr. Ayla Stanford started her organization, the Black Doctors COVID Consortium, to fill a need in communities of color that were underserved by testing and vaccination sites throughout the pandemic. This was produced by Derek Woodyard, who is also here with us tonight and features the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium. Next, we saw a contribution from JUNTOS. Latinx communities across the country were some of the hardest hit by the pandemic. In South Philadelphia, a group of teens at a Latinx immigration organization navigate the hardship of online school, lockdowns, and quarantine. This was also produced by Aidan Un, featuring Cafecito con Fuerza. And finally, last but not least, we saw a contribution from Art Reach. During a time when we had to rethink what it meant to be active, Latrice Branson, an artist and wellness practitioner, uses creativity to seek wholeness in the midst of a chronic spine injury and bipolar disorder. Produced by Rashid Zakat, featuring Latrice Branson of Drum Like a Lady. And very briefly, to set a little more context for our conversation tonight, these are powerful community organizations for whom, if you haven't heard of them before, I encourage you to research them, to seek resources from them in a time where community needs to draw on itself even more. Very brief descriptions. The Movement Alliance Project seeks to build power with community organizations working at the intersection of race, technology, and inequality. They run strategic campaigns, lift up untold stories, and build infrastructure for poor and working people to win lasting power and a just society. Monument Lab is a public art and history studio based in Philadelphia. They cultivate and facilitate critical conversations around the past, present, and future monuments. GTown Radio is a long-standing public radio station and community staple, getting the people's stories and interests out into the world. We have a really amazing lineup tonight in terms of our panelists. So I want Tom to tell us even more about GTown. JUNTOS is a community-led Latinx immigration organization in South Philadelphia, fighting for our human rights as workers, parents, youth, and immigrants. Philly Audio Diaries trains young people in Philadelphia to tell their own stories for broadcast. They are fiscally sponsored by the Culture Trust, which means they operate as a nonprofit. Artreach is a nonprofit organization devoted to increasing cultural participation among traditionally underrepresented audiences in both the disability and low-income sectors. First, I want to welcome our panelists. We have Aidan Un, as I mentioned. He is a series producer, and he produced 3 of our videos tonight. We have Tashay Williams, who represents Monument Lab with us today. We have Nomad, who is the tag and visual and featured artist in our GTown video. We have Derek Woodyard, who is representing for Philly Audio Diaries as a producer of that particular film. We have Latrice Branson, artist featured in our last piece, and also founder of Drum Like a Lady, and she'll talk a bit more about her work. And we have Tom Cassetta, station manager at GTown Radio. And we have Lajea Studevant, representing for Philly Audio Diaries. And a special shout out in case Ann is here and is going to jump in the conversation, founder of Philly Audio Diaries. First of all, welcome to all of our amazing panelists. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm going to jump right in. Yes. Okay. You can unmute and say hi really quickly.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank
yes.
you. These were amazing.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much for everyone being here. I want to invite the audience. I have a few questions, and this can last until the end, but if you have some burning questions, you want to start writing, you can drop them, I believe, in the chat, and we're going to circle back around to those. But just to get the conversation started, for our producers, what compelled you to take on these particular stories? What were you hoping to get across? And I mean, how do you edit? How do you know what to take out and what to leave in to bring across a very strong and very important point? So if each of our producers, if possible, Aidan, Tashay, Derek, and anyone else who wants to jump in, wants to talk about what drew them to this particular work, this project, and how you knew what to keep and what to, about the storytelling process. Tell us about the storytelling process.
Maybe I can go first. Yeah, I mean, so I worked. So once again, I worked on the film about 52nd Street, on the film about JTown Radio, and on the film about JUNTOS, and yeah, I mean, I've been doing work with MING for close to a decade now. And John and Elle have really, played a big part in how I do my film work. And it's really, I think it's through my work with Ming that I've gotten to know the city a lot better. I'm an immigrant to this country and a transplant to Philly. And it's through film work and, I'd say really specifically through film work with Ming that I've gotten to discover the city and to know who lives here, and what the culture of the city is like. So, but yeah, I mean, with these 3 films and with these 3 films in particular, the one about 52nd Street. I mean, I live on 51st Street, and
so you're right in the neighborhood, so you know firsthand.
Yep. I'm right there, and if you're listening well, you might hear sounds from Malcolm X Park, which stays busy. But yeah, I mean, when stuff was going down a year ago, and it's it's hard to believe that it's been a year already.
Right.
We hadn't actually started working on these projects yet, but I felt. I think like a lot of people, I just felt moved to be out there, and being a filmmaker, I thought, it was important to be there to document what was going on. I took a small camera because there was a lot going on and things were moving fast. And as you saw, I mean, a lot of that footage from the day that the tanks were there and that the protests were going on. I was in the mix, and you gotta move fast, but
yeah.
But yeah. So when we started working on this particular video in collaboration with the Media Alliance project, I already had some archival footage that I knew
that you could use,
that I wanted to use, and that I had been sitting on, and I didn't want to kind of just I didn't want to put it out there without aim. I wanted to find a home for it that felt appropriate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it felt really close to home, and then later on in November too, when it looked like we were when stuff happened around the death of around the murder of Walter Wallace. I mean, I was out there filming again, and it looked like the same kinds of images.
Yeah, definitely. And you bring up a really good point. I'm going to leave room for Tashea and Derek and everyone to jump in. But I think, and I was having a conversation with someone about this earlier, it is so important that people in the community are also the ones documenting it, because I was talking actually with my doctor earlier today, and I was like, I have a panel tonight, and they're like, well, what is it? And I'm like, going into how I was on the front lines of many protests, not just recently, but over time, but specifically with these that happened during the pandemic. What I saw downtown and what I saw being broadcast on the news were two very different stories. The narrative being laid out there. So I cannot overstate the importance of filmmakers like yourself living in the neighborhood, deciding to make sure they're capturing that accurate, like boots on the ground footage to make sure the story is told and it's told accurately. So thank you so much for that contribution. I have more to ask you, and if you want to jump in, you can, but even with JUNTOS and just, three projects, all kind of having different nature, but having a similar theme. Yeah.
I'll just say very, very quickly on that last, point of the, is that in Germantown, there's GTown Radio is doing exactly that kind of work of as far as I was able to see in the course of making our film, and Tom can definitely talk more about that, but it's an invaluable source of information in the neighborhood and in the city at large, in terms of speaking information, that's well researched, that's well reported, and that's shared with the people who really need it. And I would say the same with JUNTOS. Even though their work is slightly different, I think the work that the young people were doing in terms of speaking their own side of what it was like to do school in COVID, shed a lot of light, at least on the situation for me, as somebody who has not been in school in a really long time, and just to be able to put myself in their shoes a little bit and try to understand, what's going on with young people right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aidan. Thanks. Tashea,
yes.
Yes.
Jump in.
Yes.
Thanks so much, y'all. This is a really wonderful event. Like Aidan, I'm also a transplant to Philly. So I'm from a town outside of New York originally, but came here, I guess, like 7 years ago. So a lot of my introduction to Philly has also been through filming and just kind of learning about different people who are involved in media arts in the city. And with the particular video that I was kind of helming, we were thinking about the protests, thinking about the lockdowns, and then also trying to find a way to kind of capture how people are still creating joy and creating meaning in the midst of all of this really confusing and really alarming stuff happening. And so that's kind of how we ended up focusing on the Cleanse project. And that came together really beautifully through Paul Farber, who's involved with Monument Lab, and also Michelle Angelo Ortiz, who's an artist in the city. And, they had an amazing team of, I think, about 5 or so people kind of come together and work on that project. I think just like a really important thing for us was thinking about not only the ways that monuments are being erected by official people in the city, but also the ways that everyday people, everyday Philadelphians are finding ways to memorialize things that are important to them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
so since you jumped in on it, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question on this, because I think, so first of all, I love that Philly always feels like a step ahead. I mean, like, Monument Lab has been around, and I thought it was so brilliant when it started, right? And I've experienced some interactive pieces myself. And so Philly's already on it, not just about taking down monuments, but erecting monuments and saying what's important and what we say is important. And you had some brilliant artists, Michelle, Hank, so many artists throughout that piece. And I love hearing about the Cleanse Project as well. Tell me a little bit more, because I was doing a little more research, and I have a friend, Susan DePronio, who was really promoting this campaign that was Keep Gloria on 12th. The LGBTQ activist Gloria Caceres, she had a mural on the 12th Street Gym, which unfortunately was taken down. So talk a little bit more about the importance of monuments, period, but why we have to fight for some to stay and for others to absolutely go. And what does this mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think as Paul said in the video, like, monuments are not just about, you know, these like separate moments of art. They have a lot to do with what we think is important.
Sure.
And a lot to do with how we remember the things that happen in a specific place. So I think, you know, Philadelphia is gentrifying really rapidly. And that particular mural that you're speaking of is also a piece by Michelle Angelo Ortiz. And unfortunately, the developers bought that building and thought that that wasn't worth keeping up. And so, you know, I think that what we tried to get at with this video is just this idea that people aren't just sitting back and letting things happen, right? Like, there's always a response to these acts of violence. There's always a community who's holding each other and still like looking at each other and saying, hey, we think you're important. We think this is important. And so, you know, just really thinking about the different ways that people memorialize certain things, right? That could be a t-shirt, that could be a mural that you painted on the side of your building. But there are so many different ways that we're holding each other up and letting each other know that, like, we still value each other enough to put our work out there.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And Derek, I'm actually going to ask you the same question, but I'm also going to ask you another one coupled in there. So what drew you to telling this particular story, Derek? And also, I mean, I can't help but notice, you know, the main subject is a young Black woman who just has graduated high school, Lajea, and we're going to talk to you in a moment, sis. And then also the Black Doctors COVID Consortium just happened to be in the mix. Maybe Dr. Ayla, also a Black woman, lots of centering around Black women. Was this an intentional thing with the work, or is this just how the story unfolded? And what story were you looking or hoping to tell or allow to be told in this finite space?
Yeah, one, thank you for having me, and I mean, amazing work by everyone here. So as far as, you know, our subject, this sort of was a natural thing that happened in the process. And, you know, I think that speaks to the power that the Black woman has, you know, and, you know, is being represented in the leadership role that they have within the community. And something that we were trying to you know, bring to fruition within this piece was to be able to showcase and, you know, bring to light how communities, if they're underserved or not, you know, are able to come together and be able to bring resources to people who need it. So, you know, specifically, you know, like the BDCC, they were able to bring these resources to communities and, you know, be able to help people through, you know, such a troubling year. I mean, you know, you can look back and just, you know, look at everything that was happening, and, you know, it's still fresh in people's minds. But, you know, during that time, you know, it was very important to try and highlight that, to show that, you know, even when a neighborhood is underserved, there's still one thing that brings together, and is the community. And it's communities that hold people together. It's, you know, the people within the communities, you know, that make them strong. And that was the crux of this piece, and finding, you know, those relationships and finding that connection. And that's what really drove me to be able to make the selections, as I was going through the editing process and, in the production process. And I mean, it is just great that we were able to highlight, Philly Audio Diaries and bring on Ligea to be able to give us the perspective, of a young Black woman, to be able to, see all of this, and bring it to light.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Derek. I mean, I'm hearing this common theme from everyone's lips, just about community and how, I'll just speak for myself. The past 4 years has reminded us that all we got is us. Everyone within our community has something to bring to the table. We can bring our strengths and we can get through these things together when we find that external sources that were meant to support us just don't. Even that similar theme that I saw in the JUNTOS video, which was really touching, where they shifted focus to just creating care packages for the communities and making sure that undocumented peoples had what they needed, and how Cafe Con Fuerta did the TikTok and the little videos like telling you what to do if you're approached by ICE. Like, I really think we're reaching a turning point in our society that is being reflected in our media, where people are investing in one another and looking out for one another and realizing the only way forward is with one another. And I think really putting media in the hands of the individual is where the true empowerment comes in. So Ligea, I wanted to ask you about your experience with Philly Audio Diaries. So you were our solo, subject and recurring energy throughout the space. So tell us a little bit about your experience with Philly Audio Diaries, but also what was it like creating that? Had you ever created anything before? What was your interest, and where does your interest lie now in creating more stories about yourself and people like yourself?
Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks for having me. So my experience with Audio Diaries, it was like, it opened my eyes a little bit to actually, like, this is really out there, like the media and everything, like people are really using this as a voice for the community to really listen and everything. And it was like a good opportunity because I never knew that like people was actually out there having this youth, like she has the youth and whatever, allows us to speak and voice our opinion on exactly what's going on in our community. So that was different. I never really did no film, never did a documentary. So it was new to me. I actually never watched one before. So that was also new to me. But it was a good experience because not only did I get the chance to see how it worked behind the scene, but I actually got a chance to see the outcome and the amazing project of it all. So that was good. But your question, like the overall, like the COVID and everything, that experience, it was, at first I was nervous, as I said in the video, I was nervous about getting it, but it was just an amazing thing to actually go and, all right, hurry up, get it done and over with. I'm fine and everything is cool. But it did, like I said, it did impact our community a lot because my cousin, like they wasn't working and everything because of that. So it was just like, all right, we got to work on that. But I kept my job because like it was McDonald's, but other jobs and stuff like that, it was like they start cutting people, and being so I was a manager, I watched that happen just because they couldn't keep up with it. So
do you see yourself telling more stories in the future?
Actually, I do. It goes back to like what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about for Philly Audio Diaries. My topic was, why do people want to leave Philadelphia? And reason why I wanted to talk about that topic is because I was born and raised in Philly, but when I was 10, I went to Florida to live with my dad or whatever. It was a great experience. I moved back to Philly when I was about 14. Once I came back, I realized it was a complete difference. Like you go down K area, I'm hopefully y'all familiar with that. But when I was living down there, it's so crazy. Like you see nothing but pills, like I mean the needles and everything. It's just so sad. So it's like people, everybody the violence is getting crazy, and everybody is all, you turn around, oh, I'm leaving, I'm going to this city, I'm going to that. It's like, why everybody want to leave their home state? Everybody, you know, they want to go to they want to go to Philly, but everybody, we're trying to escape Philly. So I do see myself making films because I do want to help the youth. I want to be a counselor. So I want to hopefully share my stories and hopefully that make an impact on other people's lives.
I love it. I think that's fantastic. We definitely need more young people coming up in this way where they feel empowered to tell the stories that are so necessary. I feel like now is the time to kind of take hold of your own story and not let anybody else tell it. Be a self-namer and a self-definer. We're so really honored to have you here as a young person, giving your perspective tonight. So stay connected and stay up for sure. Moving right through, because we are powering through our panel. We still have 3 or more panelists that we want to get questions to. So everyone that's here, hang in with us, because you're not going to want to miss the commentary that's about to come up. And we want everyone to get a chance to really speak about their experiences. So I want to jump into the GTown piece, because that was such a full piece. And we're going to be talking to Tom and Nomad in that particular order. So one thing I thought was really interesting, Tom, so thank you for being here, was the Local Community Radio Act, right? It was signed into law in 2010, so it's been about 11 years since that went down. Now I know that GTown Radio has been a staple. I'm from Baltimore since I got here. It is a treasure, if you ask me, a national treasure, if you let me say it. Really, so many of my friends and colleagues have come through that station and really done important work. I've come on as guests, multiple times, and I've heard some of the most inspiring, work or new music or cutting edge. So the Local Community Radio Act, right? It opened the airwaves to low power radio stations across the country. So if you can talk about not just that, but how that's had an impact on GTown Radio over time, as well as just talk a little bit about GTown and its contribution and what you need the people to know about GTown. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for just having us on as being part of this whole filmmaking process that Ming did. And thank you for the kind words. It's always great to hear that people have been listening to us for as long as they have. We started as an internet radio station I guess now we're on our 13th year of that. It was started by a gentleman named Jim Bear. He had started the station. Then, of course, once the spots for the LPFM in Philadelphia, we had gone for one of those licenses, and we got it. So we operate at 92.9. We operate on our station from Wednesday at noon to Sunday at midnight, but we're still on the internet 24/7. But we've always came from a community radio background. That importance in terms of that radio act and radio stations like ours. There's other LPFMs here throughout the surrounding Philadelphia area. But what is really important in that is it gives a voice to those people here in our community. It is done. The programming you're hearing is by people within your community. They're living and breathing the same, what's ever happening out their back door. They're reflecting. It's really not being filtered through many things. It's like direct action. And if you want to equate it to, imagine there's this public commons. It could be a park, a space where there's a gathering place. And we're just the stewards of it. We don't own it. Nobody owns it. This belongs to you, the people. And so many entities and commons are, they're being bought up. They're being used. Yeah. Advertising. It's a place to make someone rich or gratify their ego. And, frankly, there's enough of that in the world. And it's great to have an outlet that we can allow anybody who has a passion and a desire to come on and talk about what's going on. And we've been able to, because of that, become a platform for people with what's going on in Germantown and our community to have a voice. They get to go on, they get to talk, we get to share their story with them, with their neighbors. And hopefully, I think this past year through the pandemic has really reinforced and validated our mission in that what you're saying has an impact. It starts conversations outside this radio station, and there's people talking about it. It makes them aware. And that's really, it's hard for some people to understand community radio because of its eclecticness, but we're not all alike. That's not all about us. We celebrate, we embrace the eclectic differences that our community represents. And we hope that, a radio station that kind of mixes this up and you hear these different voices, you start to kind of get curious and understand there's a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like that. It feels colorful and rich, and it feels like a safe space. And I'm really hoping people across the country are being exposed to GTown Radio because, as I said, it really is an extremely valuable resource. If we get a chance, we're going to circle back to you about a little more about GTown Radio. But I want to jump into Nomad, our artist that was featured during the same film. Nomad, I'm so excited that you're here. This is like a cool factor like never before in that, we've got you with your image up there. And we want to hear a little bit about your art. So we saw the Black is Beautiful as a recurring theme in what you're tagging, but also the gentrification, John. And you can explain a little bit more about that. But just how do you feel your art contributes to the local landscape of social change here in Philadelphia? And you can speak beyond if it reaches beyond, and just talk to us a little more about your process and what impact you hope to have, if any, with the work that you do.
I first want to say thank you. I definitely want to say thank you so much. The films were beautiful. Everything, it just came together. I'm still kind of like taken aback from and I feel it's so humble. I feel so humbled to be a part of it. It's how do I feel about my artwork?
Like with the contribution, yeah.
Honestly, it's one of those things where I guess it's like social media, where you don't think that anybody has those same thoughts as you, and you may just be speaking your mind, and next thing you know, like a tweet that you wrote may have went viral, and you like, I was just talking about the coffee from, like, you get what I'm saying, this morning. Like, I hate when it gets cold or something like that. So just knowing that what I was saying in the streets and how it was translating to people in the community and the people that were standing behind me, it was something that I really never really imagined, because I kind of at one point thought that I was the only person that felt this way. And and again, it's funny with social media, just being able, just people all over being able to reach out to me, like, hey, I seen this there, and hey, I seen that there, and then just telling me what it means to them. Like, so many, like over the past 2 years, so many people have been getting in contact with me and just telling me stories about what the face does to them, or what the face means to them, or like.
And you get mad love from the chat too, like a lot of shout outs from folks that really appreciate your work. Yeah, please continue. Yeah, go ahead.
And one thing I say is I really appreciate the people who appreciate the work that I do, because honestly, without them talking about me or just bringing what I do to the light, I guess it wouldn't have the impact that it does. And it's funny because that I always kind of tried to separate myself just from a regular graffiti writer, as far as I always had a passion for graffiti, because I liked it. It was almost like an unwritten language that you had to kind of be a graffiti or a writer to know. But I wanted to connect with more people than just the graffiti world, with the work that I was doing. So it was bigger than me just tagging my name places or my face places. It kind of, and then even it was funny because like I would see comments in like the Facebook community groups, and people, they're talking about the face like, oh, well, why he tagged the face here, and does that mean this? And people were like giving meaning, like all these different meanings to it. Some meanings were meanings that I didn't necessarily agree with. Some were meanings that I agree with, but just to see that it had that effect. It was something that I didn't even imagine that this would even be happening right now.
And you know what? I think that that's the beautiful thing about art. You know, it can be really interpretive. Sometimes the art itself is how it's being interpreted. And especially with an artist like you, there are a lot of advantages to remaining anonymous. You know, you can't always, say, no, this is what I meant, or that's what I meant. And especially, art that takes place in such a public space, and so what I love is that you're making a contribution in your own way, which to me just comes back to the theme of empowerment, the empowerment of both the individual and the community. And so then when I think about community, I think about like the sound, the music, the gathering. Like, so for Latrice, we're gonna ask Latrice next, who is representing Outreach. And I think I saw that Rashid Zakat popped in, who was the producer on that, John. Latrice is founder of Drum Like a Lady. And I love the way you described it in the film. I feel like you can do it better than I can. But you talk about how you founded this drumming collective to have people experiment with sound, something about woman-led and percussion governed. It was so fly the way you said it. And then, you know, and for me, that was my entree into you as an artist. And I've been around as an artist as well, that's why I know. And so, but the film features you speaking about your life in a different way. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about your contributions with Drum Like a Lady and anything you need and want the people to know about the resources available there. But I thought it was particularly, you know, brave to really decide to be really candid about your journey with health, physical health, with mental health, with emotional health. So my question to you, after you tell us a little about Drum Like a Lady, is when you talk about your journey into nature, you talk about how it might be a danger to a body like yours, but it's extraordinary for a mind like yours. So I just want you to talk about the decision to be more public about that journey, and if you see yourself as an advocate or an activist concerning ability rights. Jump right in. I have so many questions, Latrice.
Oh, thank you. And all these films were amazing. It's an honor to be a part of this. And so what you alluded to earlier, Drum Like a Lady was founded by women, it's led by women, and it's governed by percussion. And sometimes people ask us, well, who's your manager? And I say, God. And they think I'm joking. And I'm so incredibly serious. A lot of the things that has come to us in the past years has really been because of our impact in people's lives. When people come and they're welcome to play an instrument with you, and sometimes they see you as the artist, the performer, and when you do this to them, like, come on, I think that means something to folks, not just to come on out, but like, I need you to help me make this sound. I can't make this sound without all of us. And so each jam sounded differently from the next. Every performance sounds different. And I enjoyed that. And I let the community know that I need you to make this. And so how Drum Like a Lady began to segue into RAW, which is Radical Adventures and Wellness, is because I started the drumming with Drum Like a Lady after I lost my job as a professor due to my health. Then the drumming started to hurt my body too much. And it was like, well, how can I sustain something that I love, a gift that I have, and care for myself better? Is that an option? And at the time, I was on bipolar medicine, at least 4 different medications. Every time I had an emotional moment, I was placed back in psychiatric care, and my medicine would raise up to calibrate me. And I remember looking up, like, I don't remember why I'm on this 4th medicine. Was it because I cried that time in therapy? Or was it because that time that I 302'd myself, and because I made that choice for myself, now my medicine is higher? And I called my dad and said, I'm flushing it. But if I flush it, I have to then replace it with something. And drumming wasn't it. Nightlife had led me into drug addiction. And, you know, sometimes people talk about addiction as something that is a long-term thing. To me, addiction is anything that you're not getting rid of and you no longer want in your life. And so for me, being in nightlife kept me susceptible to those things. The person that offered it to me called it a treat and said it'll help you stay up for your jams. And that it did. But, you know, when you look back over footage and you see that your nose is running, that says something. And I didn't want to keep that as a secret. I think so often musicians and artists are surviving things quietly in order to protect an image. And I was no longer interested in an image. I wanted to protect myself, not for anyone else, for myself. And in order to balance mental health issues with bipolar, panic attacks, manic episodes with no medicine meant, I hiked my butt off. I know more trails up in this city than most people know. I know where bridges are. I know where hideouts are. No matter what I need, I can get there. And last year, I started taking other people. If you're isolating, hit me up. Let's go hit the woods. And people would be like, yo, where do you know? How do you know where you're going? And it was an opportunity to talk about instincts and following what's innately in us. It has provided me opportunities to be with children and take them on adventures, or take doctors who were just overwhelmed with all that was happening to listen to a stream. And so it's radical because it's very simple. And sometimes the simplest thing we could do to care for ourselves is going to require a lot of time, a lot of effort, sometimes extra resources. And that's why I'm grateful that this is partnered with an organization like Outreach, because those are resources that I use a lot. I try to make sure that my events are free and accessible to people because of my disability, because not every disability is seen. So when we open a door, it's no way for you to know who needed a hard seat. You know, but I can look and see who needs a seat because I know what that body looks like when it's hurting and when it's holding itself. And so even at the jams, I would tell people, if I saw someone holding themselves, I would say, excuse me, you okay? And if they say, yeah, I'm like, well, she's not. She needs your seat. And so that culture, I call it a culture of sharing, that we all have something to give. And that's really governed all the work.
Woo, sis, that was a mouthful and a blessing and a whole sermon and a benediction. I mean, there's so much. Thank you just for blessing us with that, because there's so much. I mean, everyone that's spoken today, but this specifically, I could ask you 10 other questions to shoot off of everything about artist protection and the wholeness of the artist and the community. I mean, it just comes back to so many different themes that contribute to a community's wellness. I mean, even here where you're offering anyone under the sound of my voice, if you by yourself, hit me up. We out, we in the woods. The one point I want to hit on as I bring it full circle and trying to be mindful of our time, we only have, not really, but like in my dream world, we have like 4 minutes left. So I'm going to open it back up and say, I love the piece just about you deciding to pursue alternatives outside of Western medicine, or use it in conjunction with, like, I'll take the stuff that works and I'll do this for the other stuff because I don't want to be consumed fully like that. And I think that you are an inspiration to people of all levels of ability and engagement, and really appreciate that you acknowledge invisible disabilities, because a lot of people don't understand what that even means or looks like. So, oh my goodness, Latrice, thank you so much. For all of our panelists, as we wrap up, I know I did see some questions from the audience. They were simple and straightforward, but I want to acknowledge that I did see them. One that came up several times before I ask my final question, which is, what do you see for the future of independent movement media and community media? Everybody can drop like a thought about that in a second. The first question was just about filmmakers. What is your next project that you have coming up? Or how can people stay in touch? So if it's just a link, just drop that in the chat for us. But if you want to tell us very briefly about a next project or resource, and I'll extend this to all of the panelists that you want to point people to, please do so ever so communally and very quickly. Okay.
I'll hop in first, I guess. So I'm actually finishing the grad program at NYU right now. So I'm in the process of pre-producing my thesis film. And in addition to that, I'll be editing a feature-length film, a feature-length doc actually, that will be called Settlement. And that is an indigenous digital piece that will be able to feature indigenous artists and discuss things from colonialism, their artwork, and what it means to be indigenous in today's society.
Wonderful.
I can hop in. I am screening a film that we just wrapped at Black Star this year. So there'll be a short film. It's called Gales, and it's about Black women who are also nurses in Baltimore. So you can look out for that in August. Be More, shout out to Baltimore. And I'm also raising funds for a new film called With My Own Hands. Nice. I am working on the process of improvising a script with a bunch of people who are based in Philly. So we're going to create a script together. So yeah, I can drop the link because we're raising funds for that, but that's what's coming up for me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Flora is, yep.
I just dropped the link in the chat, but for the past couple of months, I've been working with Lila Isha Jones, an amazing movement artist in the city. Luke Carlos O'Reilly, amazing jazz pianist, and Alex Shaw, a percussionist. And for the past few months, we've been working on a virtual mixed media show called Revivals of Blackness, which debuted just a couple weeks ago, and the link is available online for, I believe, another week or so. So if you want to catch it now, the link is in the chat.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. All right, I want to make sure that anybody else that wants to jump in, you can cut me off. But again, being mindful, we have about 1 minute left. Nuela, I feel like you're being very gracious, so I'm going to try to get it right up until 8:30, and then we're going. So if we could type in the chat one word for where we hope independent-based or movement-based or community-based media is going, I will read those aloud. I will bid you adieu. I encourage everyone to follow somebody that they saw today or met. Tell somebody that you attended something really dope and amazing. It is through people connecting with one another. That is how we move all movements forward. That is how we move all movements forward. That is how we move all movements forward. A couple of words. I see Blackness. I see youth. I see illuminating. I see people talking to each other. Yes. I see empowering. All of that. Yes. Freedom. Yes. Beautiful. Liberating. Awesome. Love. Yes. Yes. The future of media is in excellent hands. Solidarity. I'm going to use that as the last word. Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary folk and gender non-conforming and everybody, whoever you are, folks, people, thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for supporting. My name is Nina Lirespect Ball. These films will be filming a screening again later in the year with Philly Cam and this summer with Scribe Street Movies. Thank you again to Independence Film Media, and thank you for MING Media for putting this all together and holding it down as well. Shout out to all of our panelists. You know who they are. It's been a lovely time with you. Have a wonderful evening and good night.